This is Campus Lore Live, where NFL players are the experts on college football. I'm your host, Drew Butler, joined alongside Aaron Murray, and what an episode we have for you this week. Later on in the show, we're going to be joined by Dallas Cowboys star Pro Bowl linebacker Jaylon Smith out of Notre Dame. Tons to talk about with him. Notre Dame looking pretty good in the ACC. But, Aaron, let's dive right into it. The Big Ten was back in action this past weekend. So great to get so many storied and historical college football programs back out on the field. We had some crazy finishes. We had some unbelievable games. Let's do a little stock up and down. Tell me who you were most impressed with in week one in the Big Ten.
I think the team that really shocked me a little bit was Michigan. We all knew Ohio State was going to take care of business. There's no doubt how good that Ohio State team is with Justin Fields and all the talent they have on both sides of the football. But Michigan surprised me a little bit. Joe Milton came in. I thought they eased him into the game. Big kid, big strong arm. I think that for him to kind of take that next level, he needs to learn to not only use that big strong arm, but when to use some touch as well, especially with the passes that are anywhere from 5 to 15 to 20 yards. But that's all development, and he'll get better and better each and every week. But for me, the most impressive thing was just their offensive line. They dominated and pushed Minnesota around. They ran right at them over and over and over again. And 253 yards later, they won and dominated that football game. And then you flip it over to the defensive side of the football, and that D-line was an absolute nightmare for Minnesota. They were able to get after the quarterback, 5 sacks in the game. So you want to talk about winning football and playing the fundamentals, and that's something that you need early on this year, especially with all the craziness, the lack of practices. We've talked about it. You got to block, you got to tackle, you got to run, you got to protect the football, and Michigan did all of that in week one against a great opponent in Minnesota. So to me, big time stock up. If they can be that physical and they can get that much out of their quarterback, they're going to have a chance to win a lot of football games this year.
Yeah, that was a much-needed statement win for Coach Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines in week one. And there was a lot of good football across the entire league. How about Northwestern putting up 40-plus points and getting a big win? Indiana upsetting a top 10-ranked Penn State team. I'm going to go with the Wisconsin Badgers. So much was talked about how much they lost to the NFL. Of course, Jonathan Taylor, one of the greatest college football players of all time, our guest on Campus Lore Live a week ago. He's in the NFL now. What were they going to look like? Well, they showed out in a big way on Friday night, which I also like that Friday night Big Ten action. And how about their quarterback, Aaron, Graham Mertz, 20 of 21, 248 yards, and 5 touchdowns. A masterclass. They won and beat Illinois 45-7. Could Wisconsin have found a quarterback that really opens up their offense, that does not rely on them to run the ball so often in the Big Ten? You never know, but what a great start it was for Wisconsin. The Badgers are looking good up in Madison. Okay, we went stock up. Tell me about stock down. Who surprised you in a bad way in week one of the Big Ten?
Well, I'm going to go stock down for maybe a different reason. I'm going to go with your Wisconsin Badgers as my stock down. You know, the reason why everyone's buying their stock, they may not have a quarterback for the next 3 weeks. I'm selling the stock. I'm going to short the crap out of this stock because it's going to tank here really soon. I mean, you talk about Graham Mertz and how good he looked, and he looked really impressive on Friday night. I mean, accurate. And this wasn't just dinks and dunks. I mean, this was an RPOs, bubbles, slants, quick hitches. I mean, he was throwing the ball over the ballpark throughout that football game, and now you may lose him for 21 days. So I'm going to sell Wisconsin stock because it is at an all-time high right now, and I'm also going to sell the stock at the Big Ten. 21 days. You're going to put a kid in quarantine for 21 days. Are you kidding me right now? I know you're protecting these players. I know you're trying to figure things out. I know you just want to play football and do it the safest way possible, but you don't need to put the kid in quarantine for 21 days. That is out of control. That's too much. That's too long. Shame on you. And you're going to you're not only hurting this kid's season, which is already short enough, you're going to hurt this Wisconsin Badger football team that looked really darn good this past Friday night.
My stock down, I couldn't choose between two, Michigan State and Penn State. Why? Sloppy football. Penn State, 3 turnovers, 3 missed kicks. They outscored Indiana massively, and the time of possession was so out of whack, unbelievably, they lost that football game. And then Michigan State, they had 6 fumbles, lost 5 of them, add in 2 interceptions. Rutgers got their first conference win in almost 3 calendar years. So tough starts for Michigan State and Penn State. We'll see if they can get back to work in week 2 in the Big Ten. Let's talk more broadly about the conferences, though, Aaron. You know, the Big Ten starts late, October 24th. The Pac-10 soon to kick up here in a few weeks. Do you think either of these conferences are going to be in a bad spot when it comes to the college football playoff just because their lack of scheduled games and maybe even their lack of being able to get out of conference and show what they're really made of?
No, listen, the Pac-12 maybe because they don't have really that team heading into the season that people are already making noise about. I think you look at the Big Ten and you can already say, okay, Ohio State is one of those elite football teams in the country. They're already ranked without playing a game, which is still crazy to me that they're getting ranked when other teams are 5, 6, 7 games into the season. But they are a top 5 team, they're a top 3 team, and they deserve it. I mean, they showcased it this past weekend with Justin Fields. The defense struggled a little bit at times, especially early on versus Nebraska. They really punched it going forward there in the second half and really shut them down. So to me, Ohio State, even with that 8+1 game schedule, is going to be fine if they went out. And I would even say if they maybe slip up along the way, as long as it's not the conference championship game, I would still put in an 8-1 Ohio State team into the playoffs. I think they're fine if that's the case. Pac-12, like I said, not too much. I mean, we really need to see someone emerge that's elite. Maybe in Oregon, a team that has made a lot of noise the past couple of years. They've recruited well. I love their head coach. To me, they already bring some excitement preseason. If they can go out there and dominate that league, there's a chance you can see them in as well. But, man, I'm still shooting for Cincinnati. I really love this football team. They had a huge win this weekend versus SMU. Desmond Ritter's doing his thing. That defense shut them down. They're just a complete football team. They play great defensively. They can run it. They can pass it. Luke Fickell has him a football team that, to me, if they go undefeated, I think they deserve a chance to maybe be that number 4 team.
Yeah, there's no doubt. That top 4 already coming into view. I know the Big Ten just started, but it is fun. We're heading into week 9. We will certainly let you know what other teams we think could sneak into that top 4 conversation, and we're going to give you some updates on what happened on the field this past weekend. Come on right back after these words. You're watching CampusLore Live. We are back, CampusLore Live, Drew Butler and Aaron Murray. Aaron, you just mentioned before the break, Cincinnati, a team that is catching your attention. What a huge win they had on the road at SMU. That defense looked really solid. Tell me, now that we're heading into week 9, the top 4 is coming into view. The Big Ten is back in play. You said Cincinnati. Give me another team outside the top 4 that you could see kind of steadily rising up the rankings to really position themselves for a college football playoff push.
I'm going to stick with the SEC. I think that's the conference. If anyone has a chance to get 2 teams in, if, say, the Big Ten falters, say if Cincinnati doesn't go undefeated and you need 2 teams from a conference, I could see a Georgia, if Georgia or Florida, honestly, whoever wins that game down there in Jacksonville and has a chance to then go play Alabama in the SEC championship game, if they can find a way to beat Alabama, which is still tough to do, if they can find a way, obviously Alabama would be in as well. You'd put in a Florida or Georgia. So first off, they're going to have to, one of them's have to beat each other, and then they're going to have to beat Alabama there in Atlanta. So tough sledding, but it's still possible the way those teams have played this year. And obviously it's always tough to beat a team twice in a season. And if Georgia can kind of figure out what's going on at the quarterback position, get that offense together, I think the defense is still one of the best defenses in the country. They may have a better go around with Alabama there in the SEC championship game.
And Aaron, you mentioned Alabama. They are on another level. Them and Clemson, it seems like maybe you could sprinkle in Ohio State as well as the elite of the elite. If Georgia or Florida do get that chance to play them in the SEC championship game, it may have gotten a little bit easier because superstar wide receiver and elite return man Jaylen Waddle broke his ankle the first play of the game, the opening kickoff against Tennessee. He's out for the season. What a huge blow for that Alabama offense. What a huge blow as a dynamic return man on special teams. I want to ask you this, though. Yes, of course, this will matter. He can take the top off any defense. Every time he touches the ball, he can bring it to the house. But Coach Saban's halftime comments saying he should not have brought the ball out of the back of the end zone. I don't know. I know Coach Saban was in the moment there, Aaron, but that could rub some people the wrong way inside that locker room.
Listen, if you're afraid of him getting hurt, then don't put him on kick return and punt return. I mean, we know those plays are a little bit risky. We know there's a lot of high impact and a lot of speed going on, and injuries are going to occur there on the special team. So if you're worried about losing your best playmaker, then don't put him on there. And he said it right afterwards. Listen, he's our guy. We trust him. If he thought he could have done something with the football, then he's going to go out there and try to make an attempt to return it. So, it's a mistake on both sides. I kind of agree with Saban. He probably shouldn't have returned it, But also, if Saban's so worried about it, then he shouldn't have put him in that situation to make that decision at the end of the day. The kid is dynamic. He's a playmaker. He wants to make plays, and that's why you put him on the football field. So, overall for this team, it's going to hurt. He is dynamic with jet sweeps, with catching a slant ball and splitting safeties and taking it to the house. I mean, he's elite. He's one of the best guys in the SEC in the country. He's a potential first-round draft pick. So his presence will be missed. But right now, Mac Jones is playing on a different level. He is elite as elite can be. For so long, people say, "Oh, it's not Mac Jones. It's his receivers, and he's just lucky because he has great receivers and Najee." Maybe it's the other way around. I know those guys are great, but right now, Mac is making those guys look even better by where he's putting the ball, his accuracy, his poise in the pocket. So, maybe this team doesn't throw it as much, and that's not a big deal because they got Najee Harris. They have an elite offensive line. And at the end of the day, they can just run it, and then sprinkle some passes in on top of it. So this offense will be plenty fine, and I think the defense still is pretty darn good. And I agree with you, Drew. This is one of the elite teams in the country. With or without Waddle, obviously it would have been even better and more fun to watch this team with Waddle, but I think they will survive just fine.
Yeah, it seems kind of unfair how much talent they have. And Mac Jones, I mean, his deep ball is really unbelievable, allowing those receivers to run open. He places it right in the basket, and that equals a lot of big chunk yardage plays and plenty of touchdowns. Mac Jones is elite. Justin Fields is elite. Trevor Lawrence is elite. Starting to hear some rumbles about Kyle Trask down in Florida. Aaron, before we head to our interview with Jaylon Smith, is Kyle Trask getting close to that next level of elite quarterbacking?
I mean, I don't know what people are complaining about. The kid has been absolute elite. I think the issue is they haven't played in a couple of weeks, so people just have forgotten about him. I mean, he was the talk of college football here about 3 weeks ago, and then all of a sudden they have the COVID issue. They've had to miss a couple games, couple weeks. All these other teams are playing. They're playing well, and you kind of, honestly, we've forgotten about Florida. We haven't talked about them. It seems like forever, but let's not forget Kyle Trask has 14 touchdowns, only one interception, and he's completing 72% of his passes. So this kid is really darn good. He's going to make a case throughout the season. He is the best quarterback in the SEC. He's definitely up there. I put him and Mac on a different level than everyone else we're seeing right now playing this league, and he will be plenty fine. We know the talent they have from Pitts to all the talented little slot receivers. So he is going to continue to put up stupid numbers. He just, like I said, it's been unfortunate because they haven't played in a couple weeks.
Yeah, a lot of great quarterbacking. Don't forget Ian Book. Now we got Graham Mertz if he stays healthy. Kyle Trask, of course. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how these teams position themselves heading towards a college football playoff push. All right, after the break, we're going to be joined by Dallas Cowboys Pro Bowl linebacker Jaylon Smith. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We are back, and we're thrilled to be joined by our guest this week. Aaron, I am happy to say that Jaylon Smith, the star linebacker, the Pro Bowler from the Dallas Cowboys, and out of Notre Dame University of Notre Dame, is joining us. Jaylon, thanks so much for your time. Tons to talk about. Notre Dame off to a fantastic start. Everybody knows they are a member of the ACC for this season, which is great because that put them on the field this fall. What do you think about how the Fighting Irish looked up to this point? Ian Book and Coach Kelly have the boys rolling.
I love the tenacity, the togetherness. It's everything that you look for in a in a Notre Dame Irish team. It's all about grinding, man, and these guys, they're playing for one another.
Offenses are just moving at such a rapid pace. You see it all across every league in the country. What do you think is the most important thing for a linebacker to possess in order to be a real weapon on the defensive side of the ball in college these days?
Great eyes, great awareness. Your alignments must be on point. And then from there, it's just about playing the game you love since you've been playing since you were 7 years old. And if you got the skills, it'll show.
How do you slow down these RPO offenses, especially in college right now? It just seems like you got some great quarterbacks that are super athletic. Obviously, you have the threat of the running back running, you got the threat of the quarterback running, and then you got some slot receivers that are running quick slants. You got the bubbles. I mean, as an offense, it's pretty easy. It's just a numbers game. If I got numbers, I'm going to throw it. If not, if I got an athletic quarterback, I'm just going to read that defensive end or linebacker, whoever my read key is, and then pull it or give it based on that. As a defense, how tough is it in preparation going against some of these teams that really run the RPOs in the zone reads?
It's critical. And it's all about being on one accord. When you play read zone teams with quarterbacks that can pull it and run every single snap, when they're in gun, you must know who is responsible for the running back and who's responsible for the quarterback. When there's a lot of gray, you'll lose. So that's the battle that defensive teams go through. And then from there, you just gotta lock down on the perimeter.
Yeah, Notre Dame's going to have a huge test here in 2 weeks when they host number 1 ranked Clemson. You talk about an RPO offense.
Victory.
Trevor Lawrence, Travis
Victory.
Etienne. Let's talk about it, Jaylon, because from my seat, I don't know if Notre Dame has made
Victory.
the leap. Clemson is
Let me tell you.
team.
Let me tell you why.
Well, please do. Tell us what you think is going to happen.
As you know, I went to Notre Dame, and in November it gets cold. And can Clemson handle that?
Absolutely.
It gets rough and South Bend up in November, man. So we'll see.
What do you think the biggest key is from a mental standpoint, getting ready for the game, and from a physicality standpoint, actually playing the game to take down Clemson in the regular season?
It starts in the trenches, and you have to play free. Got to play free. You got to play together. That's really what it comes down to. Notre Dame, man, we can get the job done. We just got to be together. It's gonna take a team effort.
It's going to take a full team effort. It's going to take Clemson having a rough day, I think. But listen, it'll be fun. And one thing I've enjoyed is watching Notre Dame play in the ACC. I'm a big fan of the brand, a big fan of Ian Book, and your coach Kelly. So you look at their schedule this year and you compare them to years past when you play, USC and Michigan and some of these big time games. What would you rather have, being in a conference, or would you rather have the old school slate of games that you're accustomed to seeing at Notre Dame?
Man, we got to keep our rivals. We got to keep our rivals, man. I'm a firm believer in it. I've played in it for 3 years, and there's no other feeling.
Do you think that the brand, and of course I love it as well, I mean, watching Notre Dame play USC, watching Notre Dame play Stanford, I mean, those nationwide rivalries are so good for the game of college football. Does that trump being in an actual conference to validate what you've done throughout the season?
Those other teams aren't Notre Dame. And we're playing high quality competition, having to play Stanford each year, having to play USC each year, then going, diving into the Big Ten, diving into the ACC.
Give us a score prediction though. When Clemson and Notre Dame face off, obviously you talk about the weather in that game. What's your prediction? Give us a little insider here.
28-31. Notre Dame wins it on a field goal. And then a huge defensive stop.
We'll be watching it, Jaylon. I know you will as well. Thanks so much for your time. Good luck the rest of this season with the Dallas Cowboys. And when we come back after this break, Aaron and I are going to break down Week 9 for you. You're watching CampusLore Live. We'll see you in a minute. What a great interview with Jaylon Smith. Aaron, that's one guy that you would not want to see on the other side of the field as your quarterback. He's smart. He's athletic. The dude knows where the ball is going to go, and he is a game breaker. So huge thanks to Jaylon for joining us on this week's episode of CampusLore Live. Let's dive into Week 9, Aaron, and we'll start in the SEC. Georgia is going to hit the road and head up to Lexington, Kentucky to take on the Wildcats. Georgia did have a week off after getting throttled by Alabama. A lot of question marks surrounding the quarterback position. Will Stetson Bennett remain the guy? Will the offense be able to find some consistency? It seems like after watching Kentucky lose to Mizzou this past weekend, this could be a really good get-right opportunity for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, you got to be feeling pretty good if you're Georgia heading into this game. And listen, the issue is going to be Kentucky's offense, plain and simple. I mean, you talk about Georgia maybe trying to figure out their quarterback position. What about Kentucky? I mean, last week they played Terry Wilson and Joey Gatewood. And you got to think at some point right now, and possibly this week, you got to make the switch and go with Joey Gatewood. This offense right now is too predictable. It's just run, and then maybe try to take a couple shots here or there on the outside. So, I think you go with Gatewood. The receivers have to play better for Kentucky as well. But right now, if you're going to try to run the ball against Georgia, who's only given up about 65 yards per game on the ground, you are going to be in trouble. You got to find a way to mix it up, take some shots down the field, get some slants, bubbles, whatever it is, get the ball in the quarterback's hands because you're not going to be able to run it against the Dogs. And then for Georgia, I do anticipate Stetson Bennett being the guy. I think he's played well enough this season. I give him some grace for that game against Alabama. Listen, it's his fourth game. He was the fourth-string quarterback heading into the season, and you're playing Alabama at Alabama. That's not easy to go in there and try to win a football game. So I think he's going to be the guy. They got to find a way to run the football more consistently. Though you saw it against Alabama, they got away from it. I think that's going to be your game plan going forward. Run the football, protect your quarterback, and then play elite defense.
Yeah, Kirby Smart's comments this week said they need to get back to their brand of football, which is kind of that man ball, run the football, establish the run, play great defense. Georgia has the horses to get that done. Should be a good weekend for the red and black. Let's head to the Big 12. Texas heading into Stillwater to take on the number 6 ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. Oklahoma State stacking wins, Aaron. Got a great top 25 win against Iowa State this past weekend. Can Mike Gundy and the boys keep it going? Or is Sam Ehlinger and Texas going to play spoiler and really put the Big 12 in a bad spot for postseason play?
I don't think so. I mean, Tom Herman right now is he's on the hot seat. I think the whole state sees it. I think that whole program sees it. I think they feel it. And right now it's just not a good feeling. And, for Sam Ehlinger, he's so used to playing, no defenses in this league. He's used to just going out there, guys running wide open, pretty much playing on 7-on-7. That's not the case when you play Oklahoma State, one of the very few teams in the Big 12 that actually shows up and wants to play football on that side. They're only giving up 12 points per game. So to me, Oklahoma State's just more complete. They can run it. They can play well on the offensive side of the football. And obviously they have one of the best, if not the best defense in the Big 12. So I think Texas is just going to have their hands full. I think they're pressing a little bit too much. And right now I just don't think they have the mojo.
I think this is the classic Tom Herman as an underdog game. Do not count out the Longhorns. They could throw a wrench into the entire Big 12's picture for the college football playoff. And Sam Ehlinger can put another notch on the belt for a big-time win as the quarterback at Texas. That'll be a good game to watch. We'll see if the Big 12 can keep their CFP hopes alive. All right, let's go to the biggest game of the weekend. It's in the Big 10. Number 3, Ohio State, heading to Happy Valley to take on the number 18 ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. Penn State should be undefeated. Cannot believe how that game ended a week ago against Indiana. They should not have scored that touchdown at the end of regulation. The game would have been over. Penn State is hosting Ohio State. Can Penn State hang with the big boys? Ohio State is elite, and Justin Fields is the real deal.
Well, I mean, you talk about that emotional game this past weekend for Penn State. I just don't know if they're going to be able to get over that. I mean, that's a tough one to kind of swallow and wake up on Sunday and then get your mind right Monday. Luckily for them, they have to play Ohio State, so there is a sense of urgency to get going. And one good thing for Ohio State is the fact that there are no fans in the stands there in the the Big 10. So you're talking about a Penn State stadium that's usually rocked and loud and really tough to play in is going to be empty. So all of a sudden now you're making things a little bit easier for this offense. I think Ohio State, they're just too darn good. And for Penn State to stay in this football game, Sean Clifford has to take care of the football better, has to make the most of every opportunity when that offense is on the field.
Man, you just bummed me out because I totally forgot that no fans will be in the stands. This is a 7:30 p.m. primetime game in Happy Valley. It probably would have been a whiteout in any other season, but you just brought me down and said there will be no fans in the stands. Still, this is a fantastic rivalry. These teams always play each other close. I just think Ohio State is too good. They're not going to falter in week 2 against Penn State. Penn State better take care of the football or this one could get ugly. I'm just happy we're still talking about college football, Aaron. It's going to be another fantastic weekend all across the country. We got you ready right here on CampusLore Live. We will recap it and get you ready again next week. Big thanks to Jaylon Smith for joining us. For Aaron, I'm Drew. We'll see you next week right here on CampusLore Live.